you live on $133 a month for food?
I should try it because you know how fabulous I'd look? I'd be so skinny. I mean, have my abs 10 pounds, it really does. I would be looking great.
We really messed up. And we're all very sorry. I personally apologize to you if that happened.
I'm the worst journalist in the world!
The White House soup of the day, my favorite radio guy in Fort Lauderdale, it's minestrone chicken sausage.
I want you to watch what we're about to do because you've never seen anything like this on television.
What's up, guys? I'm Manuel Rapalo, filling in for Abby Martin. And I know, you guys miss Abby, and I promise she'll be back here to break the set tomorrow. But until then, I want to tell you about a new campaign underway that's calling to revoke President Obama's Nobel Peace Prize. The petition, launched by an organization called Roots Action, is calling out the Obama administration, saying that it has, quote, widened the use of drones and other instruments of remote killing in several countries, and made perpetual war look even more perpetual than ever. Is it just me, or is it a bit ironic that a peace award has gone to the same man that's managed to completely destabilize it? It's about that time. Let's break the set. Over the last 6 months on the show, there's been one argument that has stood out: the concept that democracy as a form of government should give all voices an equal opportunity to be heard, give all ideas a fair and equal platform to be communicated to the voting public. And no, I'm not about to start ranting about how disappointed I am with the outcome of the 2012 general elections, but it's because this is an off year that I think it's important to consider that there's always an alternative. People are rallied every 4 years with what seems to be an opportunity for a big change. Many of us rely on the idea that change has to come from the very top. But consider this. Elections don't only happen at the national level. We have elections at the state level, with each state having a governor and a state legislature, and we have elections at county and local levels too. Check this out. The latest census data shows that there are more than 89,000 local and state governments, amounting to more than 500,000 elected positions. By the time Americans are done voting, there are over 1 million offices filed during every election cycle. And isn't that just the beauty of American democracy? That millions of ideas can be represented so that the bigger picture can be changed from the bottom up? Well, that's the idea anyway. The obstacle to this is the domination of the two-party system, a narrow focus on one spot in the ideological spectrum: Democrats versus Republicans. And that's why on this show we've made it a point to be a platform for excluded voices, individuals who challenge that mold. Having said that, I want to take a look back at a few important points made by some alternative political leaders that we've had on the show. Green Party presidential candidate Jill Stein urged Americans to demand the powers that be to allow alternative voices to be heard. Check it out.
In my view, what we need is to bring that demand not only into the streets, but also into the voting booth, that we must stand up and set the agenda and fight to move us forward. The politics of fear, which basically says you need to be quiet in the voting booth, has basically brought us everything that we're afraid of.
Indeed, it is the politics of fear that perpetuates the two-party system. Now, you might be asking yourself, what are we really missing out on? Well, that's just it. Third parties are excluded from the national dialogue. Here's what Libertarian presidential candidate Governor Gary Johnson told Breaking the Set about the last presidential debates.
What you did not hear in any of these debates is, let's not bomb Iran. Let's get out of Afghanistan tomorrow, bring the troops home. Let's recognize marriage equality as a constitutionally guaranteed right. Let's end the drug wars, legalize marijuana now. Let's repeal the Patriot Act.
Look, guys, that's just it. We can't keep subscribing to these politics of fear. We have to look beyond that. If you want to be the change in this country, you have to get out there, and the first thing that you need to do is vote. Till then, there'll be no change. You know, it seems President Obama is really trying to make good on a promise that he made during his State of the Union. Something he said is fundamental to the preservation of democracy. Check it out.
Defending our freedom, though,
is not just the job of our military alone. We must all do our part to make sure our God-given rights are protected here at home. That includes one of the most fundamental rights of a democracy, the right to vote.
All right, guys, so to talk about this promise and much more regarding the electoral process, I'm joined now by Christina Tobin. She's the founder and chair of the Free and Equal Elections Foundation. Thank you so much for joining me, Christina.
Thank you so much for having me.
And look, it seems like there's so many different ways that voters are being disenfranchised these days. Is it really the right move by President Obama right now to be going after these long lines? Are long lines really the most detrimental thing to democracy right now, or do you think that there's other things that are being missed here?
It's an ongoing problem. We've had this for a while. It's another distraction. You know, the marriage equality. I mean, people recognize we want equality. You know, during that time, he signed a bill for Monsanto, long lines. We have way bigger issues. All these problems we have are so much deeper, like the National Defense Authorization Act, Patriot Act, SOPA, drones, war, drug war, the list goes on and on. So again, another distraction. Yes, it's important, but under an electoral system where we have true people, good people in office, Democrats and Republicans, they've gotten us into this mess, but when we reform that system, we will no longer have problems like long lines, but bigger problems like the NDAA and all the other things I previously mentioned.
Absolutely, no, and it's again, like you said, just another one of those things that really distracts from other issues that could be covered more in depth. But one of the issues that you've been very vocal about in your organization, have also had success in, is this Top 2 legislation, which I feel a lot of people still haven't really heard about. I'm wondering if you can expand on it and, you know, what your organization has done and the actual ramifications that this could have on the electoral process.
We really sent a message, I feel, to the elite by stopping Top 2 from passing this past November, that is, in Arizona, Prop 121. And what it means is only the top 2 vote getters in the primary advance the general election. It could be only 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans. That's not good. It means the worst Democrats and Republicans would essentially become one party. It could actually be worse than what it is, and to control the United States. But fortunately, we stopped that in Arizona, and it hasn't been able to pass in the dozens of other states that they had hoped to do that. And we did that by uniting with leaders across the spectrum in Arizona and spreading the truth. And that's what we do at Free and Equal. We were up against millions of dollars and our tens of, maybe thousands of dollars, not even 10,000. We defeated it because we traveled in a car around the state holding 5 press conferences and meeting people and telling the truth. So thank goodness it's squashed. It still is in California, unfortunately. It passed in 2010, previously in Washington State. But I do foresee that Top 2 will cease to exist, fortunately, in the near future.
Yeah, and I mean, it's really fortunate that you guys were able to be there and be the grassroots movement to keep that from passing. But I want to switch the focus over to third parties. During this last election season, you actually moderated, along with Larry King, the third party debates. And I'm wondering, you know, RT, along with maybe a handful of other networks, was one of the few that did get a chance to cover these debates. What do you think are the driving forces that keep alternative voices like the third-party presidential candidates from making it to the mainstream?
Well, we got quite a bit of coverage. Over 20 million people viewed it worldwide. Thank you so much to, of course, RT America, not only being a part of first debate, but hosting our second debate. But top 10 trending on Twitter. We recognize that social media, the power of social media and technology is so powerful, and that is really what's going to help us into kicking off and taking the momentum of that debate into a really big event we're going to be having come June 22nd out in Little Rock, Arkansas.
Yeah, that's going to be really great. Christina, I want to ask you something about the Free and Equal Foundation. Something very unique about Free and Equal is that it hosts members of the Occupy Wall Street movement, but then at the same time it also hosts members of the Tea Party movement. What I want to ask you is there a way that these two groups can find a way to unify and kind of work together, put their ideological differences aside, and be kind of a unifying force as an alternative to this two-party system that we have in the United States?
That's what Free and Equal is. We're a nonprofit. We're here to build others. And last November, a group of amazing leaders from head of Occupy Little Rock to Tea Party, Young Americans for Liberty, Greens, Libertarians, Independents, you name it, Republicans, came out to host an End the Fed rally. It was covered by all the local media in Little Rock. And now it's these leaders on the ground who are going to be hosting the United We Stand Festival in Little Rock, Arkansas, at the Verizon Arena. 17,000 people this venue holds on June 22nd. From 6 to 10 p.m. And the amount of people that are confirming: Ralph Nader is confirmed to participate, Mike O'Donnell, artistic Hollywood producer of Pirates of the Caribbean, Gone in 60 Seconds, he's our producer for the event, as well as Marcy Forgrave with ADM, who helped produce our Larry King debate, Golden State Band, American Idol, the Ron Paul Baum song, Jordan Page, musician, the list goes on and on, Tatiana Morez, Josh Tolley, Elizabeth Imus Zero, Amber Lyon, Dan Johnson, Larry Pratt, the president of Gun Owners of America.
Really sounds like you've got a whole host of people coming in. Tatiana, I heard I heard that name through. We've actually had her here on the show. I think this is going to be very exciting. What are the goals of United We Stand? Can you talk a little bit about what are some of the ideas that are going to be presented, as well as what you're hoping to accomplish with this nationwide, that is?
Great question. It's the kickoff for a University United We Stand bus tour that we're going to hold in the future. 10 stops across the country. And what the goal is to unite the grassroots, left, right, everyone, people across the spectrum to break the stranglehold of the two-party system and reform the electoral process throughout the United States. So when we hold this, of course, June 22nd, United We Stand Festival will be the kickoff. When we hold the tour in the fall, all of that momentum, as you mentioned before, voting is important, right? Well, we're going to inspire many people to run for the local, congressional, state races 2014 and so on. And we're going to take back our government. We're going to replace Democrats and Republicans alike. We're going to bring integrity within our government through a national database that Free and Equal will be launching and building others, working with RT America. Thanks for your support. Honest media, musicians, and so on, to bring integrity within our government and to shift our government back to the origins of the Constitution. And you can learn more about it at freeandequal.org, freeandequal.org.
Yeah, Christina, thank you so much. And what I did want to ask you, we only have a few seconds left, is it going to really take a revolution? Is that what we really need in this country, for people to really wake up and realize that the choice isn't an illusion, that we really do actually have alternatives in this country other than the two-party system?
Great question. A peaceful, positive, powerful movement. Don't fall into the trap of negative energy. This is powerful, spiritual, happy in what we're doing. So the system wants us to get angry.
And I hate to
Don't
cut you
take
off.
the bait.
Unfortunately, we're out of time, but thank you so much for coming on the show. That was Christina Tobin, founder and chair of the Free and Equal Elections Foundation. It was a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, if you like what you see so far, go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/breakingtheset, and be sure to do what thousands have already done. Give us a like. We'll be updating our status daily with links to past segments, as well as reaching out to you for ideas on what we want to see covered on Breaking the Set. You can also check out behind-the-scenes photos we take at our studios or when Breaking the Set is reporting on the road. So head to our Facebook page and check out all that and more. But stay tuned to hear from actress, activist, and one-time presidential candidate Roseanne Barr next.
I got news for you, gang. The world is round.
That's a good one, Meg. Thank you. The news begins anew. With more attacks rolling, breaking news is the news that is one of the casualties in Iraq.
There's my kid. Don't tell me how much time I spent helping out the Prime Minister.
Tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. Eastern.
So you say no foreign aid whatsoever to watch what happens.
Coming up next, this is a Fox News
We are in a situation where the entire...
I didn't agree to talk about the surveillance state.
want you to watch what we're about to do because you've never seen anything like this on television.
Guys, last week we had a very special guest on the show, someone that's pushed the boundaries in Hollywood, using her platform to tackle issues like homosexuality, classism. You may know her simply as Roseanne, but she's not only a famous actress and comedian, she's a social activist, a leading political figure, and just ran for president under the Peace and Freedom Party. In an interview, Abby first asked her why she felt it was so important to talk about LGBT issues on the show. And this is what she had to say. Check it out.
It was always important to me because I have a gay brother and a gay sister, and we were raised in Salt Lake City, Utah, and they went through a significant amount of bullying, and so it was always important to me because that was always a big issue in my life, and it was very, very difficult to get it on television, and it was a very hard fight, but it's proven to have been the right thing to do.
Absolutely. And those who are against this issue is definitely staying on the wrong side of history, Roseanne. But in addition to homosexuality, Roseanne confronted numerous social issues such as class, domestic violence, race, and women's rights. I mean, your show, I think it resonated with a lot of people because it represented the plight of the working class. I mean, how important do you think it is for people to be able to identify with real characters like this? And how come we don't see this type of programming anymore?
Well, the whole issue of class is like big taboo in America. You're not supposed to notice it, and you're not supposed to talk about it, and you're not supposed to oppose it. It's just supposed to be there like reality. So that was a hard thing too. It was a hard thing to talk about class, race, and gender in America. It still is.
But why do you think that we don't see anyone pushing the envelope like your show used to do?
Well, because it's too hard, and the only reason that I was able to do it is because I was just such a committed activist and committed fighter. But I know how hard it is for anybody else. First of all, it's really difficult to see things that are kept invisible, but it's really hard for artists to find their voice in the medium of television. Period.
Right. And let's talk about sexism, Roseanne, which I know that you're very vocal about today, especially as I'm looking at your timeline. I mean, I talk about women's rights a lot on this show, and I cannot tell you how many men tell me sexism doesn't exist anymore. And in fact, that sexism against men is actually more of a problem in society. Where is this mentality coming from?
It comes from a mentality of sexism. And just by virtue of the things they say, I mean, it's just ungodly ignorant, and it's ungodly ignorant that they have no idea that they're ignorant, too. So it's like levels of, patriarchy and patriarchal brainwashing and mind control.
And, I can't help but when, as we're talking about this, think of the Steubenville rape case. I mean, this is a perfect example of how sexism does exist in society. Not only did the rapists get a slap on the wrist, but the media was showing sympathy toward the rapists, their verdict. I mean, is the media and entertainment responsible for perpetuating a rape culture?
Yeah, I think the media is responsible for perpetuating a rape culture. And, I mean, it's profitable for the people at the top who run the rape culture, who run it, and, they profit from it. And to say otherwise would be a big fat lie. But so, they don't want any kind of power shifted away from the way they have it set up in a very hierarchical manner with, women's free labor at the bottom, largely slave labor, at the bottom of that big pyramid.
You've been a Hollywood insider for so long, yet you've been vocal for so long. I mean, how challenging is it to see your colleagues across Hollywood lacking for the Obama administration when they have so much power and influence that they could single-handedly shape the dialogue when so many people are watching them?
Well, I think that, this is a culture of fear, and nobody's more afraid than people in Hollywood. They're afraid that they'll drop out of the top, they're afraid that they'll drop from the bottom of the pyramid, maybe to the middle of the pyramid. But you know, they're the ones. Hollywood is the one that keeps all this power structure and all this culture of racism and sexism and classism and genderism and all of it in place. They continually feed it, and they make a lot of money doing it, and they do it at the behest of their masters who run everything. So, you know, they're not going to get brave enough to do that. I mean, I think that there aren't many of us who are brave enough to do that. And I'm just, you know, I'm lucky that I can do it, and I feel that I do it on behalf of many people in Hollywood too. I go to Hollywood parties, or you know, occasionally I go to Oscar parties and things like that, and people, big stars, people will grab me by the arm and take me aside and say, "I just want to thank you for the things you say." And it blows my mind, but that's the culture. It's a culture of fear for sure. You know, and it's a big culture of mind control too. MK Ultra mind control rules in Hollywood. If you don't know, Google that and look into it.
Well, we've talked about Operation Mockingbird, MK Ultra mind control stuff from, I mean, this goes back decades and decades. But Roseanne, I mean, do you know people have been blacklisted? I mean, is it just kind of a self-censorship in Hollywood, or do people actually get edged out if they are too much against the grain?
Yeah, it's self-censorship after a while, but it's not just a crazy self-censorship. It's self-censorship because there's actually a danger that you will never work again. And people know it. Everybody has friends that it happened to, that maybe you said too much, or maybe you were too vocal on unpopular issues. And it's funny because it doesn't matter if 2 years later, I find this a lot, that 2 years later, those unpopular issues become very mainstream. They still don't forgive the first person who does it. And that's kind of been my story there. When you're first, you're you know, going to be vilified, despite the fact that 2 years later everybody's saying what you said. You're still going to be vilified because you dared. And you know, like they say, the Chinese, you know, the Chinese have a myth or a saying that says the nail that stands up is hammered down, and that's how it is here and everywhere in the world. Right. You know, you don't really want to put yourself at odds with people who decide your future and pay, you know, for your work. But sometimes you have to. And I was very lucky that I had a successful show that made me a lot of money, and so that I can do that. And I feel that I owe that to the people I came from, to say those things that maybe they can't say because they're afraid they'll be fired, or they're afraid even that they'll be put in jail or whatever. I'm going to do it because why not?
Well, that's why I love you, Roseanne, because you are an artist, you're a comedian, but you use your craft to also really express daring political statements that are too true. And like you just said, I mean, years later, all these things are validated. I mean, look at MSNBC 10 years after the Iraq War saying how we were all duped. I mean, they were part of the duping. So it's amazing to see, you know, as it's mainstream, we all know these things now. It's easy to come out and say, you know, what happened? We were all sold this war. But Roseanne, weeks ago, you tweeted something that I loved. You said, failed Senate, failed Congress, failed executive branch, failed Supreme Court. You know, people look at this and they agree with you and they say, you know, this corruption, this blatant corruption is why we need less government. What do you say to those people?
Well, those people that say they want less government are just a bunch of liars, because, you know, they're trying to get the government on the backs of all the gays right now. So they do not, in fact, want less government at all. They want more government. And it's funny that the whole time they're trying to amp up the government on everybody's personal freedoms and civil rights, they're talking about they want less government. Well, you can't have it both ways. One of the things you people are saying is just a lie. And which one is it?
And also, the government has bailed out these banks, which is basically government socialism for what capitalism has turned into, this crony capitalism where socialism is bailing out the capitalists. It's just an amazing hypocritical thing that this country's turned into. But you decided to be the change, Roseanne. You ran for president under the Peace and Freedom Party in the last election, yet the stigma remains. Voting third party is a wasted vote. I mean, how dangerous is this to perpetuate the lesser than two evils mentality?
It's very, very dangerous, and it's very, very sad. And you know what? I'll tell you, it's very un-American. It's like, you know, they don't like America, and they don't like, you know, what we're all proud of about our country. They want to beat down our right to speak out, our right to dissent, our right to be a whistleblower, to do the right thing. They don't like any of those things, but they won't be able to stop it. So, you know, a word of encouragement from me and from you and from people who think like us is very, very important, and it's very important that it happens over the people's airwaves.
And I know you were.
So thank you for what you do.
Well, thank you, Roseanne. That means a lot to me. I know that you were also a supporter of Occupy Wall Street, which unfortunately was violently suppressed by militarized police forces all across the country. And Roseanne, I tell people that everything we do every day is political. I mean, every action we take is a vote, essentially. Any more words of advice you can give to people who are watching this and saying, you know, there's nothing that can be done and we don't have a voice?
Well, I'd say that's not true. There's so much that can be done, and don't stop now, because we've put a crack in it, and now the light will get in. So don't stop now, whatever you do. Don't stop. And you know, they talk about Occupy Wall Street and this and that and the other, but you know, it needs a reboot, like everything having to do with resisting a country being owned by banksters and both parties of its government being owned by banksters. There's no way we can turn our back or quiet down now. It'll only get worse. And so now's the time to amp it up. And for Occupy Wall Street and all these vehicles and venues of resistance, it's time to come together. And I have, my theory is that it's sexism that really beat all those things down. Because in every single thing, that is not led by women these days, it's going to fail, because women are tired of listening to men. We you know, as a class, not as a sex, but as a class, we're just tired of failed policies of males that continually put everything in conflict, and then so there can be a winner and a loser. That's not the way women think, and it's not the things that those are not the things that women value anymore. So I think that we're going to find that any method of resistance, any organ of resistance is going to fail unless it is led by women. And I see evidence of that everywhere on earth. And, you know, it's going to come to America, too, and it is coming. And so I just give everybody a heads up to take a look at that and see if I'm not right.
Roseanne, and I thank you for being one of those powerful women leaders that we can look up to and follow the words that you're saying, which is the spirit of dissent's alive and well, and we need to keep pushing back against this system. Thank you so much, Roseanne Barr.
That's it for today's show, guys. Thanks for watching, and of course, thanks for bearing with me. Stay tuned for another episode tomorrow.